Welcome to That's What She Pled, with attorneys Christina Goldberg and Julie Lurson from Lurson Goldberg LLC, law powered by women. It's time to shake up the old standards of law and of business. Join these two witty, intelligent, and sassy female business owners who are taking their industry by storm, challenging stereotypes and shattering ceilings. These two are on a mission to educate, empower, and support not only their own clients, but other powerhouse female entrepreneurs. Come for a laugh and stay for the vibe as Julie and Christina hold nothing back and share the truth of what it is to be female attorneys and business owners through discussion of current events, original stories, and inspiring guests. Now, on to the show.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's Christy and Julie. We're your favorite attorneys, of course, but we are here again with That's What She Pled for this week. And we have actually a really awesome guest with us.
Yeah, we're on the road again.
Yes.
A few episodes ago, we went to Texas. Even though everything looks pretty much the same in the background, you know, we were in Texas, and now we're in New York with a powerhouse.
Are you going to sing again, Julie?
You mean my best Willie Nelson? Yeah. On the road again. See, I don't think he has the greatest of voices, you know, by comparison. I probably shouldn't say that.
Oh, God.
Anyway, we went to Texas, and now we're catching up with Michelle Mirman. And there's actually a connection between our road trips because Margot Pilisher, with whom we spoke a couple of episodes ago, started her career in New York. And she started her career working with our guest today, Michelle. We're covering a lot of ground, but it's a small world. And so we're excited to sit down with Michelle. She is a very experienced attorney. Her firm is Mirman, Markowitz, and Landau. They're based in New York City, the Big Apple. And like us, she also handles lots of injury law and related negligent sorts of cases. And so it's kind of fun to have somebody who's doing similar work and with us today so we can kind of compare and contrast and talk about our experiences. So welcome, Michelle.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Great.
Oh my gosh, you're spending your time with us, so we thank you. Michelle, you're licensed in 6 jurisdictions?
Yes, a variety of states.
My gosh.
The reason is, first of all, I happen to be a very good test taker. So unfortunately for many people out there, I can study for 2 or 3 weeks and pass a bar.
Ugh.
I have a method to my madness. But the reason I did take all of the bars was several decades ago, I thought that I would expand my practice into a variety of states. So I took California, New Jersey, Connecticut, Florida. I have to confess, I waved into Washington, D.C. I did not take the test.
Slacker.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Waving the best way to get licensed?
Many states say, at least when I took the bars, that, and again, it's quite a while ago in the 80s and 90s, that you had to practice more than 50% in the state if you were going to waive in. So I was not going to commit to practicing more than 50%, so I took the bars.
Ah, okay. Interesting. I'm originally licensed in Virginia, and I feel like DC was a place where you could get reciprocity, but
right, you could waive in there easily.
Yeah,
very easily.
And I became licensed in North Carolina via the reciprocity process, which was quite rigorous, to be honest. And then 10 years after I got my original license, I moved to Florida, which has reciprocity with no one. Everybody's a carpetbagger.
Right.
So you have to sit down and go through that horrid process. It took me more than 2 or 3 weeks, but
it took me meltdowns and months.
To take the bar?
Yeah, just to prepare.
Right. My thought about Florida was that they really did not want people from all over the United States descending on the state. So that's why they made us take the bar again. I thought when I took the bar again, it's, decades ago, Florida was the hardest. There was multiple guesses on the multiple choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I took a bar prep course, and I remember they were constantly invoking the anti-carpetbagger and you had to know all the intricacies of the procedure, criminal, civil. It was just horrible.
And the Homesteading Act. You had to know the homesteading inside and out, right?
The rule against perpetuities. I still don't know what that is, or
I don't know, but Disney invoked it recently.
yeah, they did.
That's right. So we're all going to catch up on the rule against perpetuity.
There we go. A lot of research. So, Michelle, you happen to be the record holder for largest ever verdict for a client for a rape victim. Is that right?
That's correct. Back in 1985, as a matter of fact, I had, rape trauma syndrome at that time wasn't even in the psychological manual. It took a few more years for it to be
hit the DSM.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. So not only did I have to prove the liability, but I also had to prove that my client suffered trauma as a result of the rape. And if you can imagine, in the early 80s, there were no rape trauma centers. There was one in New York City at St. Vincent's Hospital, which no longer exists. It's been torn down. In helping my client locate the appropriate care, it was very, very, very difficult. She was a lovely young woman. She was about 28 at the time. Her husband was a nighttime bartender. She lived in a private house. They had just had construction done, and the contractors had changed the side door, but they put the lock in upside down, backwards. So from the inside, it appeared locked. From the outside, it wasn't. And it was just probably somebody was looking to break into a house, and hers turned into the easy one to get into.
Wow.
She had 2 children. They were sleeping in the next room. And what made it particularly devastating was that one of them was autistic. And she worked with him constantly in one of her basement rooms. They had set up a quiet room for him. And of course, after this happened, she was beaten in bed and raped, and her children slept through it. And after this happened, she couldn't go down to the basement. She was too frightened. And of course, it had ramifications in her marriage and in taking care of her own children. And she was from Ireland. She had a beautiful brogue and a very religious woman. And she could never get peace because of this. What was interesting was that her priest recommended a book to her written by a rabbi. Of course, it's hard to forget some things like this. And the book is still used. It's called When Bad Things Happen to Good People.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And my jury was out for several days, and they prayed. They told me afterwards they prayed each time before they sat down to discuss the case.
Wow. Oh,
wow.
Gosh.
That's
incredible.
Victory.
That's impressive. I mean, tragic.
Right. It was tragic.
Well, that sort of leads me. I mean, you have your accolades are longer. It's just a huge list. You lead the New York State Trial Lawyers Association, founded the Brooklyn Women's Bar Foundation. You give back in all sorts of ways, large and small, support kids, at-risk groups, museums, all of that. But I think and tremendous, unbelievable. But what really made you get into becoming a lawyer? What's your path? What's Michelle's path?
And injury law.
Injury law. Well, the joke is I fell into injury law because it was not
pun intended.
Right, no pun. Well, a pun is intended. But I was always very, very active in the community, always. My father was, his parents were, my aunt was. I remember in high school thinking I was very liberated, and I announced to my father I was going down to Washington to do the anti-war demonstrations. He said, "Terrific, we'll all go." And there I was with my parents and my sister and my aunt in another car, and all my thoughts about being so liberal and progressive and ultra just went down the toilet.
You had all these chaperones with you.
Right. Well, they were going too. Because
well, of course. Right.
It was very hard to break out.
Right.
Anyway, so that's how I grew up, in a very engaged family. I went to Sarah Lawrence And again, Sarah Lawrence was a women's school, but by the time I was there, it was starting to have men. And again, the school was very liberal, was very engaged. And I decided in my third year that I was going to apply to law school. I had a very good friend there who was a young Quaker man who was not a draft resistor. In other words, he was an evader. He didn't sign up for the draft. Again, you have to remember this is 1972, 73.
Yeah.
He believed that you could not support the war effort at all. So he was caught, of course, by the FBI, and he ended up in a Kentucky federal prison for approximately a year. We're talking about, a very nice young man. And he said he was very lucky because he wasn't thrown into the general population. He was put into the library. So he had a chance to get to know people gradually so he didn't become a victim right away. But his experience and the stories that he told me made me very interested in prisoners' rights. And I ended up applying to Antioch Law School. It was the second year the school was in existence. And so I was applying in 72 to 73. I started in 73. And we were the first school in the country to have a clinical program. The school was started by Jean and Edgar Camper Khan. She was the first Black woman student allowed at Yale Law School.
Oh.
And their vision was to start a poverty law firm with the students as the interns and lawyers in Washington, D.C. So there I was, second graduating class. I graduated college just before I turned 20. I started law school when I was 20. And I was representing prisoners on disciplinary shots and helping with habeas corpus and going through all their other clinics. They had a family law clinic, a commercial clinic, and it was really a fantastic experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just go ahead and jump in at the ground running.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great way to find out what you love and what you don't love.
So what I wanted to do, I wanted to come back to New York. I was not going to stay in Washington, D.C. To me, it felt very much like the South, and especially then.
Yeah.
And I came back to New York, and nobody at all knew what Antioch School of Law was. We had no reputation. We had nothing. It's very hard to find a job. And I write to places for a job, and they write back, "Dear Mr. Turchin." My maiden name is Turchin. And Michelle, I guess they figure, it's really
Michael.
Exactly. So I got a lot of Mr. rejection letters. My father was a lawyer. He was a tax lawyer and a CPA. And he ran into a friend who said that Arthur Spat, who ultimately took the bench in New York and made it to the federal bench in the Eastern District, needed an associate. So I went over there, I interviewed, and Mr. Spad said, "Come back tomorrow," which was a Saturday. And I said, "Well, I guess I'll meet the rest of the people for my second interview." I walk in the door, and he said, "And these are your first clients."
Oh.
I didn't even know I'd been hired. I was so naive. So I thought I was hired to do corporate commercial work. But Mr. Spad at that time had been a negligence lawyer. He had a big negligence practice, a lot of medical malpractice cases. And I did corporate commercial work for him. And then he sent me to court one day to answer a case and get an adjournment. The judge would not adjourn it. He said, "Go pick a jury." I called Mr. Spat. He said, "Go pick a jury, counselor."
Okay, so the theme continues.
Oh,
right. So you're just in the pool, and you got to figure out a way to
Exactly.
navigate. And so
I know you, right. So I know you spoke to Margot.
Right.
And
I think she had those sorts of experiences.
Exactly. That's exactly how I ended up training my lawyers, because you can explain, you can talk, you can study, you can practice, but there's nothing like standing up for the first time in front of a jury and having to say what you want to say.
Yep.
Nothing really prepares you for that.
There's no. No, not a thing.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
So do you consider Mr. Spatz and some of these folks mentors?
Yes, definitely. Arthur Spath was definitely a mentor. Definitely. And again, because of many of the things that he did, he was so encouraging. Number one. Number two, everything I did, he thought was fantastic. I don't think we have bills of particulars in Florida. It's a pleading device we have in New York. It's very old-fashioned. First, you serve a summons and complaint that starts the lawsuit. The defendants answer the lawsuit. That's called the answer. They serve a demand for a bill of particulars, which is a series of questions designed to elicit more information about the case. Just what your claims are. It's not supposed to be proof or evidence, just claims. Anyway, one of my first cases with SPAT, which I ended up trying several years later, was an assault case in, not a Burger King, but something along those lines, a McDonald's or Burger King. They served their demand for a bill of particulars, and I didn't want Mr. SPAT to know what a novice I really was. So I took this document home with me. I spent the entire night writing it. It was a masterpiece. It must have gone on for scores of pages. Anyway, I came back the next day and he said, "Oh, this is great. I've never seen anything like it in my life." And of course he hadn't, because nobody writes bills of particulars like that. You answer a question, yes, no, maybe, and you go on to the next one.
Right.
Less information, the better.
Right, exactly. I write books. But what he did was he provided me with multiple opportunities to learn, regardless of the seriousness of the case. And of course, he was there to make sure that I was on the right track. But I argued motions, I did appeals, I argued appeals, I tried cases. Whatever was there, I had an opportunity to do. And not just second seat, although I did second seat him on some major cases.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. What's your favorite area of law?
My favorite? I don't know that I really have a favorite. There are particular cases, and shouldn't even say cases. What I should say, there are particular people and their problems and issues that jump out at me.
Yeah.
And that I feel that I want to make sure that I get the 100% right resolution for that client. Where I feel that the defendant has done a terrible wrong and some person's life has been upturned for no reason whatsoever, just because of fate and thoughtlessness of someone else.
I think,
Oh, I'm sorry, Julie, go ahead.
we love all our clients, work hard for them, but there's some you have a real affinity for their situation, and it's just hard not to want to. Yeah.
Right.
So
Connect
sorry, I
on
didn't
some
mean to
level, particular
jump over you
for somebody.
Right.
No, you're good. So curious, what is the court system in New York? Ours is vastly changed. I haven't physically set foot in a courtroom in quite some time. What's the state of the court system there? Are you Zoom based, or what's going on there?
Well, we're doing Zoom and we are appearing in person. The courts are all open. They have been for a while. Our issue is that for the 2 years that the courts were closed, we developed quite a backlog of trials.
Yes.
So that if I'm putting a case on the calendar today for trial, it's really unlikely that we're going to be reached for trial for 2, maybe to 3 years. It's that bad.
familiar.
That's probably about right. Yeah. We created the same backlog, and then recently with the newest tort reform changes in Florida, now
there's a whole bunch more lawsuits.
There's
the docket
on them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We actually just got, Julie, was it Hillsborough County? I think Tampa. Judges there decided we're going to enter automatic stays in these cases, and the stay will expire on a date that coordinates with the case number. So they divided case numbers because they cannot handle the tens of thousands of cases that were filed within a period of a week or so. Because once we realize this is coming and it's going to be signed into law the day it passes, and it
becomes
like 3 weeks flat. I mean, so it got crazy.
How did it change? How did the law change in Florida?
The easy stuff, we changed our statute of limitations from 4 to 2 years. We now do comparative fault at the over 50% mark. You're precluded from recovering. They've significantly changed negligent security, premises cases. The criminal is now in the verdict form. And then the damages that we can present in the way of medical evidence has been substantially constrained. For instance, 120% of Medicare would be the allowed amount.
They did away with
case values or
fees. If the insured has to sue their own insurance company, those are gone.
So everybody wanted to get cases that were reasonably ripe filed, because that at least preserved those cases with respect to the longstanding laws in place.
Excuse me. Yes, you. Thanks so much for listening to That's What She Pled. We hope you're enjoying it so far. If you have any questions or would like to talk more about this topic, you can find us at lawpoweredbywomen.com. And all of our social media platforms are listed in the show notes.
So there was, was it 100,000, 80,000 cases filed within about a 10-day period in the state. So we still have some residual COVID backlog.
Right.
And of course, at the same time, all the courts started really cracking down on making sure cases were not languishing on the docket. So, we have these case management protocols, which envision an 18-month, from filing to trial time frame. So
good luck.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
A whole bunch of variables at play.
Yeah.
So in New York also, what makes it somewhat challenging is that a lot of the judges have their own rules. So that from court to court, you can have one judge asking for Zoom conferences, file your papers, do this, another one come in person, argue this.
Wow.
And it gets very confusing.
Yeah, we do that, local rules, and with the judges there, it definitely pays to know your judges.
For sure.
For sure.
Although I think broadly speaking, like non-evidentiary stuff is always going to be via Zoom.
Now it seems like.
Yeah.
Which is, I appreciate it, but there are I'm sure you see too, Michelle, do you see people on Zoom? You've got an attorney without a jacket on and sitting outside on a park bench drinking his coffee during a hearing. And I say his, that's interesting. That's only because of what I've seen. But that drives me crazy. I mean, there's a courtroom decorum. I don't care if I'm sitting in my office or in the courtroom. There is still an appropriate way to appear. Oh, my gosh.
Right.
That's horrifying to me.
So I really haven't seen very much of that. I see attorneys coming, perhaps not dressed up in a suit, but certainly dressed at least from the waist up.
Well, we're all guilty of that. Yeah. Well, that's good.
But
I've seen it. Maybe it's a Florida thing.
No, it's probably not. I've heard the stories of people speaking inappropriately, acting inappropriately, dressed inappropriately.
Right.
I have a feeling that if they appear in front of judges, then the judges say, "This is that."
You're smashed.
Right. Please leave my courtroom until you're prepared. You saw the cat filter guy,
yes.
and that went viral.
Yes. Right.
But then I had a hearing that I was in where the defendant, I don't remember what it was, but he showed up, and you can type your name at the bottom of the screen. You can tell him who's appearing.
Right.
It said something really inappropriate, really obscene. And so the judge is going, okay, who's the person with the whatever? I felt so bad for this guy because he goes, my brother set this up for me and I have no idea what he put in there and he's just playing a prank on me and I'm so sorry, Your Honor. It was funny. I was mortified for him, but things like that. I mean, it's check your name when you log in.
The expectation is you know your way around Zoom and you know what to do, which of course implicitly would include making sure that your name is correct.
Sure. Well, at this point, I think most of us started learning Zoom in March of 20, right?
Exactly.
the pandemic started.
Right. Now we're
That's
conversant.
Right.
Now it's just, it's second nature. So there's definitely some good parts. On the other hand, I miss the feeling of we're doing this the right way. I know my clients are paying me for a job. I might as well go to court and do it. Yeah, I get it.
Well, I think the Zooms have, in a lot of instances, speeded up the process, because before, for us in New York, we have a discovery conference at the beginning of the case where they used to be called 8As or preliminary conferences. So everybody would have to appear, and you'd end up sometimes in a courtroom with another 100, 150 lawyers. Right. Take forever. You'd have to come back at 2:00. So conceivably, one lawyer could be tied up on one case all day long. This way, with Zoom, the judge can get a lot of things done. The attorneys can get a lot of things done. Whereas we do a lot of these preliminary conferences without any court intervention and just submit them to the court for signature. Same thing happens with oral arguments. Same thing can happen with the settlement conference. How many times do you need to go to court to hear your adversary say, Your Honor, I haven't gotten anybody yet. I need another adjournment. So at least this way, things are handled somewhat more expeditiously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the geography of it too. I know there are attorneys, for instance, that do lots of sort of smaller things, and they'd be racing up and down from, this county court to that county court. And now that can knock out a whole lot more, behind their desk. So, So what's your average day look like? Are you in the office?
Well, again, unfortunately, we're not trying very many cases. I don't know exactly what the statistic is right now, but the last time I checked, the New York City is divided into counties. We have 5 counties in New York City itself. Brooklyn had tried about 270 cases. Manhattan had tried about 50. The Bronx about the same. And Queens even less. So with the small number of cases being tried, the delays, we're not really getting into court to try our cases as much as I'd like. And the times that I've gone to conferences, it's been a little frustrating because I go on a case that I expect will be conferenced, and it's just adjourned because there were so many cases on that particular day to conference.
Right.
But we're ready every time that case is called, whatever case it is.
And how frustrating is it to go back to your client and go, no, sorry.
Right.
Again.
Right. Because it's not great for the client.
Yeah. No, it's not. And at some point it's unfair. I don't like using the word unfair, but it's unfair to circumstances and clients who are going, okay, I am strapped. I can't wait any longer. And unfortunately, that's what happened during COVID with us, is we just had so many clients who were right on track for trial.
Right.
So many of them who said, no, you don't hear me.
Go ahead, settle.
I can't wait. You have to resolve this. And we're going, please don't resolve. But they don't have any choice. And the longer it gets pushed out, it just compounds the losses, it seems, and they give up.
We are doing mediations in New York.
At all?
So we are doing that. We do.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. There are, a lot of mediation companies. Many of the insurance companies are interested in mediating. And I find that you get a fair figure. And if you don't like the figure, there's always the trial to back you up and just keep on going with the case. And what I found also, at least during COVID, that we were able to settle cases over the telephone.
Mm-hmm.
COVID didn't stop us. The fact that the courts were not moving ahead as quickly didn't stop us from resolving cases.
Yeah, no, it didn't. Yeah. It didn't stop us either. Is mediation mandatory in New York?
No.
Oh, okay.
It is
because it is here.
Florida, right?
Yeah,
it is.
So these are private mediation companies. NAM, National Association, JAMS, SAM. There are a variety of names.
Okay. There's a little thing going. Yeah,
we have a mediation cutoff date every circuit case. We have to mediate before trial. You learn who the good mediators are, that you really understand. Okay, you work for this, because there are some mediators who do nothing.
Right. Right.
But it gives you I honestly half the time use it as an opportunity for my clients who I can tell them until I'm blue in the
Client
face.
control.
Right.
But when I have somebody else saying to them, listen, you need to get a grip about I understand you've been through this, but there are so many
Your
things. This is
expectations.
right.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I use it more as a client control tool as well. But yeah, we have good success at mediation. I mean, it's the best time to really be in control of your own destiny.
Right.
Otherwise, you're trusting 6 jurors who couldn't figure out a way not to be on a jury.
Right.
Right. And also it gives you good insight into what the defendant's best play is.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah, it always amazes me too that they present that. I'm tighter-lipped at mediation.
I understand the incentive structure for doing that. And you know what? It also, again, affirms with your client when you've been telling them they're going to concede liability or whatever the case may be. This is going to be a case about your damages. And they're still stuck on,
It's not fair.
something that wasn't fair.
Right. Yeah, it's not fair damage. It doesn't exist.
and then they hear that and they're like, oh, okay, I guess she was right.
Right.
Sometimes. Anyway, yeah, mediations are, I think, a good thing to be required, certainly in the interest of judicial economy. Which,
Right.
so what do you do for, like, when you're not working, and what is a...
So, sure. Well, I'm lucky. I'm in New York City. So,
Yeah.
of course, I have museums and Broadway and plays and music available to me. But I'm fairly active in sports. So I played tennis, and I took up golf a few years ago, and I ride polo,
Oh, all right.
which I also took up a few years ago. I had a
Isn't that a pretty dangerous sport?
Well, I'm not playing professionally. I guess if I was galloping down the field at 50 miles an hour with 5 other guys swinging a mallet at me, it might be dangerous. But
We have a little polo field here where there's polo season, and
it's a beautiful sport. It's a beautiful sport.
Yeah.
But, this is very amateurish, but it's still on a polo pony with
a mallet
mallet.
or what that it's called.
Cantering down the field. And so I have a friend who rides and had several horses. She kept on saying, why don't you come and try it? Why don't you come and try it? And one summer I did try it, and I just fell in love with it. We're out in a beautiful field in Long Island at Riverhead, and it almost feels like Disney. Am we allowed to say Disney when I'm talking to Florida people?
Of course.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. And it still is what it is.
Right. So you drive down a road and Bambi comes jumping out, and Thumper, the bluebirds.
Right.
It's a colorful field. And the horse is very lovely. She's a nice little girl. And
She has a hape.
it's an Argentinian name that I can't pronounce, so I just call her Honey.
There you go.
Right.
Oh, I wouldn't have even. Gosh, that's awesome. That's just not something that you hear people say.
Several years ago, we got invited to actually sponsor a women's polo tournament.
Okay.
So we got to see women in action too, which was fun. It was a great afternoon.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It is
So
a lot of fun.
no pickleball?
No, I play tennis. I don't.
Yeah. Well, right. I just had to ask because,
I didn't even know what pickleball. That's a thing. They just built a new facility. Julie, I bet you saw. They just built a new indoor pickleball facility locally.
Club.
Excuse
Right.
me. Club.
I understand it's the fastest growing sport in the country.
Yeah, LeBron James and Tom Brady, and they've got all these celebrities, investing and promoting. So it's crazy.
Right.
But it's also a sport that drives, I think, people crazy because it makes this very annoying noise.
Exactly.
So they put these pickleball courts in. People think it's great until they have to listen to the dink, dink, dink all the time.
Oh,
So
I know. I know. It's when I sold my house, a potential buyer, because we had a lot with property in the back, a potential buyer wanted to know if the HOA would allow them to install a pickleball court in the backyard.
Okay.
And I had never heard the word pickleball. This is a couple of years ago. I'd never heard the word. What on earth is that? So that's okay. And now suddenly it's everywhere.
So I understand there are a lot of injuries from pickleball because people think that it's easy to do because it's a smaller court and it's a smaller racket. But in fact, you have to be pretty nimble running back and forth.
Yes.
And you're not
The lateral movement.
Right. You're not turning around and running. You're actually moving backwards and causes a lot of people to fall down and hurt themselves.
And the ball itself is hard. So
Yeah, but it's a wiffle ball. It's not.
yeah, but it's hard plastic. So anyway, it would hurt.
I would just roll an ankle. I know it.
Yeah.
I know it. Oh, we could talk forever, Michelle. I would actually, what I would love to get from you, you're just a bona fide powerhouse female in business. What if there were some takeaway? I mean, we still, it's the good old boys club. I'm sure it is still there. It is here. But if there were some takeaway, or how do you find it best to market yourself? So one of the things that Julie and I run into is we are either too nice and too smiley, or we're too
soft.
There's a word that I won't use, but we come off as those women.
Angry.
Right.
Vindictive.
Where do you find is the middle ground?
Sure. So I don't think I've ever been accused of being angry.
Oh, we've had some stuff said.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Unsolicited.
Vindictive or whatever or all the words that women are traditionally used with women. I market myself as a woman with all the qualities that we have that men do not have. That perhaps we're more compassionate, we understand better, we have a greater understanding of the problems, the day-to-day problems. And we're more sympathetic, we listen better, we're better at problem solving, we're more intuitive, and that's how I've always conducted myself. I think at the beginning, when I first started to practice, it was very tough. It was really, really tough because, first of all, I was young. I was extremely young. That's number one. I was 23 when I tried my first case.
Oh,
and people were still, think about it, people were just graduating college and getting out there. And number two, I was really the only woman in the court that I was practicing in. And the guys there treated me like a joke. Every single case, no matter how simple, I had to come into court with copies of the law because no matter what I said, the guys would laugh. That was their way of dealing with me. And I'd have to show the judge the law. And of course, the judge would know the law, but regardless, I had to go through this whole charade of proving that I knew what I was talking about doing. And eventually, I tried one case after the next. And back then, the jurisdiction in Brooklyn and civil court was $10,000. And I know it sounds like, so easy to get a $10,000 verdict from a jury, but frankly, it wasn't that easy. But I kept on hitting the bell, as they would say. So you do that enough, and the lawyers take notice. They stop. Right. They're like their daughter, their toy, the funny thing on the block, and they say, "Oh my goodness, I really have to take this woman seriously." Right.
Yeah. So it's time and preparation and effort and understanding. You're going to face it.
Right. But as far as marketing, I just always try to be who I am. That's it. And string theory, I've learned, says that the best way to accomplish what you want is cooperation. So whether it's true or not, what I always try to do is find out from my adversary exactly what they need or want to properly evaluate my case. Because how are they going to know what the real value of my case is unless they know the full extent of my client's injuries? I'm not talking about giving away secrets, but I'm talking about making sure that I have developed every single one of my client's injuries so that they are apparent to the insurance company and defense counsel so that they put the right value on it. If I keep that all to myself, how are they ever going to know?
Right.
Yeah. And I've seen that too. There's different kind of schools here about, no, I'm gonna keep this all to myself. That doesn't benefit anybody.
Right.
I don't want to show up at mediation and then present some great big case
point
because
of
they haven't had an
discovery.
opportunity to get the
Right.
authority to do anything with it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Trial by ambush, trial by surprise is that's very, that's not how it works.
No.
You have discovery and that sort of thing to sort of encourage that. But I think fundamentally what you're talking about, Michelle, is exactly right.
Right.
Well, this has been fun. I mean,
Yes, it has
your
been.
stories are so interesting and your perspective. And so thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
Do you have a blog? Do you share
Yeah.
things online?
Yeah, Facebook. I have a Facebook account. I have LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. So,
Okay.
So look you up.
Oh, absolutely. Please do.
Look you
And
up.
it's Mirman, Mirman, Michelle with
Correct.
one L.
Exactly.
Perfect. Yeah, I think we're trying to figure out now what's the wave. We do kind of a written blog, but I think people are more into maybe video now. So
Right.
maybe we'll start doing some video blogs but as we collect stories like yours, but you've got a
I know.
line of really cool stories.
Yes.
Oh.
So that's what I've been doing, actually. I've been doing video blogs. So you should go take a look at my Facebook and LinkedIn page.
Amazing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
sure.
We'll go for it's more inspiration.
Right. Little vignettes. And then we write the words across the video also. So people can listen and look.
Perfect. All right. We'll
That
do
is
that
fun.
when we're done here. Yeah.
Anyways,
Thank you,
wonderful
Michelle.
meeting you.
You
It
too.
was so great meeting you.
And if you
Thank
get to
guys.
Sarasota, give us a shout. We'll go to a polo match.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that's what she pled. And we're all set for this week. So everybody have a great week. We are Julie and Christy. We are Law Powered by Women. So you can find us, follow us, send us questions, send us your love. And that's that. So we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to That's What She Pled podcast. Don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and do not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Lursen Goldberg lawyers. The content has been made available for general informational and educational purposes only and may not constitute the most up-to-date legal or other information. The content is not intended to be a substitute for legal advice from your individual attorney, and the information provided does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice.